my beautiful friends. I'm your host, Leah Rowling.
I'm Cari Kenzie. Welcome to Shift Happens. Discover the leader within. This podcast is designed to disrupt the way you live, lead, and love. At Shift, we challenge traditional narratives and believe that inner wisdom is the key to every decision.
Are you ready to explore a new paradigm of both living and leading? We'll dive deep into our innate strengths as women: compassion, curiosity, intuition, grace, vulnerability, and love. The shift, it's about to get real. Rediscover the power within and transform your life. Stay tuned. It all starts now.
Hey, my dear friends. Well, we are extra excited for this conversation today because we really don't know what's going to happen. Leah and I got together earlier today and we just started to, we do this so often. We just start down a trail of a conversation. We were talking about, some clients that we have been working with recently. And we started to dive into just a little bit as it pertained to taking on people's emotions, really not holding ourselves in our own container of space, right? And when we do that, how often it is that we really kind of excuse them out of navigating what it is that they really should have the opportunity to feel. And so I said, you know what? This is actually the conversation that we should have. And then we went, well, what are we supposed to talk about? Like, do we have to hold true to that? Do we need to talk about hiring, right? The thing that if you look at your little description of the podcast today, that's what it's going to be around. It's going to be around hiring. Or do we step forward authentic and not worry about it being perfect and matching and aligning to what it is that we had thought sounded like a good idea, because it was a great idea last week. Yeah. But what really feels true to us today is this. So we're going to step forward. We're going to talk in what's true for us today. So apologies to anybody who came on in that. I thought we were going to talk about hiring. You know what? It will wrap around into that. Yes, I guarantee you this is going to be a great conversation for you as it pertains to that. But I think where we really want to navigate is around this conversation, because it does happen not just within relationships like spouses and friends, but this does happen quite frequently, I think too frequently, in organizations as it pertains to leaders. Leah?
Oh, yeah. and I think we get to do this. Because our whole opener, I was listening to it, I'm like, yes, we are disruptive in everything that we do. We're even disruptive in bringing forward a completely different topic, right, than we had thought. And again, when we put these topics out there, it's mainly just to keep our producers happy, so that they know what we're doing and they've got in advance what it is that we're talking about. And it really made sense talking about that then. But as we were talking this morning, it made way more sense to bring this conversation forward. And so that's what we're going to do. So again, I will also apologize if you read this, if you read the show notes and go, really, I want to know more about hiring right and the process for doing that. We apologize, but this is going to be way, way more fun. So when we think about owning and stepping into and allowing space for not only other humans, but ourselves to experience whatever it is that we're navigating, it's really important that we understand just a few things. And these are through lines and topics that we share pretty much from podcast to podcast. But sometimes it takes situations that bring forward these topics that they land just a little bit with impactfully.
Yeah, I agree.
So bring us forward to kind of the conversations that we had this morning.
Yeah. So what's really interesting, and I'm just going to call this forward as this is just unfortunately how some people navigate, right? And quite honestly, we've all been there. And unfortunately, we've all been there. I will
Yeah.
just state that. But we all, on some level, have had some form of a core wound. We've had something that has happened to us, right? That has caused us to believe something about ourselves or something about the world around us that we just simply haven't been allowed to or forced to feel our way in or around enough in order to find that core wound so that we can show up differently in our life. Okay. And this is going to go from, what do we say, boardroom to classroom, right?
Yep.
This stems the entire gamut of humanity. And when we have that, I'm going to call it insecurity, because this is what comes out of it. When we have some kind of a core wound, something that's happened, it provides us this wonderful insecurity.
Hmm.
Okay. And in this insecurity, there's a lot of emotion. In this insecurity, there's a lot of thought processes. In this insecurity, there's a lot of feeling the need to control, feeling the need for validation, feeling the need for whatever the case may be, so that that insecurity, okay, is appeased.
Hmm.
It's appeased.
Hmm.
Okay. And when I have that insecurity, my conversation to you in some situations is going to be from that space of insecurity.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
Now, that insecurity wants to play with something. And I say this to my clients all the time, it's going to play in a sandbox.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you're in the sandbox with it, right? Because you're both on the playground and you get in the sandbox. And that insecurity from you or from somebody else decides to have a word. Okay. And it might hit a little insecurity, a little fear, a little self doubt, a little something in you.
Hmm.
And you start to play in the sandbox together.
Hmm.
Okay. And then the other person is like, they're going to play with me. Let me see what happens when I start throwing sand. I'm going to throw the sand up in the air, right? And you either get to throw sand back, right?
Hmm.
Or you get to sit and just have sand thrown on you,
Hmm.
or you can leave.
Hmm.
Okay. I bring all of this up and I call it in a sandbox because I think sometimes it's good for people to have a visual of what this could look like, because this is what happens. Okay. When that comes forward, that's an emotion, that's a fear, that's an insecurity, that's a conversation that I'm having with you. When you engage with somebody in that conversation, you are not allowing them to sit in the emotion and the feeling of it.
Hmm.
You're taking it. The sand's being thrown at you, it's being thrown on you. You're playing in it. Okay.
Hmm.
So that person doesn't have to sit if I step away and continue to throw sand on themselves and then decide this isn't a place that I want to be. You never give them an opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
Right. And so as we were sitting, we were talking about this morning, and we're navigating through and talking about situations where we've seen this kind of thing this past week, right? With some of the clients that we've been working with. It's like, what is the thing that causes people to continually sit in the position of that insecurity, of that core wound? And why is it that other people give them permission to do it? Give them permission to not have to feel the things that they've been through. What is it in the other person that causes them to take it on for themselves and make it their own?
Hmm.
I want to hear your thoughts on this, Leah, because
Well,
you were fire this morning, girl.
well, it it's everywhere, right?
Yeah.
It's in conversations with our team. It's in conversations with our significant others. It's in conversations with our kids.
Hmm.
Okay. And so what happens typically is we all have some sort of an insecurity that we make it mean that we're not good enough, we're not worthy, we're not valuable, we're not enough. Okay. Whatever insecurity that is, whatever we continue to believe, right?
Yes.
And when we don't, so this was what will happen. You will have a feeling and it will feel uncomfortable, right? And it will
Hmm.
feel like doubt. It will feel like uncertainty. It will feel very, very scary. And when you haven't learned that you can feel any emotion, that there's
Hmm.
not an emotion that will kill you, that all of the emotions are just part of the human experience, and
Hmm.
there's not positive ones and there's not negative ones. There are harder ones and there are easier ones for sure. But most people are unfamiliar with feeling.
Mhm.
And it's because someone, their entire life, have absolved them from it.
Mhm.
As moms, we try to do that with our kids,
Mhm.
right? Don't cry, it's okay, right? Or, oh,
Mhm.
don't be mad, don't be mad, don't be mad. Or don't be disappointed, I can fix this for you,
Mhm.
right? We don't have the conversation like, tell me what disappointment feels like. Tell me why you're disappointed, right? Because we don't know how to navigate our own emotions. So for sure, we don't want our kids to have to go through it.
Mhm.
I was talking to a parent just last week who was very concerned that her son, who is an athlete in college, was navigating a lot of doubt, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of frustration. She was very concerned. How do I fix it? How do I take those emotions away? And basically, what I offered up to her is I said, hey, does your son play sports? Is he an athlete? And she kind of looked at me like, Leah, I'm trying to fix his disappointment right now. I don't know what these questions are. I'm like, what these questions are is you want him to go to the gym. You want him to lift weights. You want him to get stronger, right?
Mhm.
You actually pay people to rip his muscle. And that's fine. No problem there. Go ahead, rip the muscle.
Mhm.
Because because we've been conditioned to know that that's okay,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? We've
Mhm.
normalized ripping of bicep muscles, but God forbid touch the muscle of the brain or the heart. Ooh, that those two are off limits. Why?
Mhm. Mhm.
Why?
Mhm.
When we allow for either heart muscling to rip and to tear by way of heartbreak, right? Or by way of frustration or disappointment or label whatever hard emotion you want to, we become more resilient. We become more stronger. And yet nobody wants to do that. So the mom that's trying to take it away from their child wants to take it away, right? For a couple of reasons. We would say we want to take it away because we want our child to feel better,
Mhm.
but mainly it's because we want to feel better.
Exactly.
Because there's so much discomfort in having other people be uncomfortable. So we'll absolve them from it.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
and and when we do that, we literally take away everybody's responsibility to have their own management of their emotions.
Well, it's I go back to the sandbox analogy
Mhm.
just because it's when you talk about that, and I've heard Gabor Mate talks about this a lot, there is that pain that sits within. Okay. And if that pain goes unexpressed,
Mhm.
right, then that pain is what's going to be sitting in the sandbox.
Mhm.
And that pain, I like to call the subconscious mind. It's the stuff that you would never do consciously, you would never do from a heart space,
Mhm.
right? But you're doing from a protection mechanism. You're doing from a past pain. It's that pain that then goes and it sits in the sandbox.
Mhm.
And you've got your best friend, you've got your spouse, you've got your assistant, you've got whoever sitting in the sandbox with you. And that pain decides it wants to come play.
Mhm.
Okay? So that pain then starts playing and tossing sand over at the other person.
Mhm.
Okay. And that other person, if you have navigated your emotions, if you have regulated and you understand what it feels like, you can sit and allow that person and that pain to throw sand,
Mhm.
and you don't throw sand back.
Mhm.
Okay. When you don't, when you sit, and this conversation could be, and you know what? I'm just processing through a lot of stuff right now. I'll let you know when I'm ready to have that conversation. You know what? I'm processing right now. I'm not ready to play. I'm not ready to play. And the more you do that, the more the pain that's throwing the sand diffuses itself
Mhm.
because it's not entangling in your pain.
Mhm.
And your pain is not absorbing the sand that's coming at you
Mhm.
because you feel like you have to absorb the sand in order for them to feel okay.
Yes.
It's when we get into those validations. I need to justify. I've got to justify what you're feeling. I need to validate what you're feeling without allowing you to feel it. That's where we start to take things on,
Yeah.
right? It's not that you're crying and so I'm crying. It's that you get upset, so I get upset
Mhm.
and I fight back. I throw sand back.
Mhm.
Does this make sense? I just want the people to
Yeah,
like,
I get it. It makes sense for sure. I think it when you understand your own, it's why so much of the work that we teach is on
yes,
emotional
it's on you.
maturity and understanding your emotions. Because when you understand your emotions so good, so well, you will know when it's not yours.
Yes.
You will know when whatever it is, whether it's insecurity or their own frustration or their own anger, and they're throwing it at you, you'll know, oh, wait a second, that's not mine. And you will
Mhm.
allow them to have their own experience in it, right?
Yes.
But what
Yes.
happens is when we don't know it's ours,
Mhm.
and we think that the best way that we can get to the other side of this
Mhm.
is by just being their dartboard or by
Mhm.
absolving them of whatever it is that they need to feel so that they feel better faster, so that then you can feel better faster, then
Mhm.
then you rob them of the responsibility of ever becoming emotionally mature,
Mhm.
right? And then you just become more emotionally upset. And it,
It's so
right?
true.
And it's a lose-lose. Nobody wins here. Nobody grows in this space,
No.
right? It's temporary. For
Mhm.
those of you absolvers and you label it as an empath, no. Mm-mm.
Mhm.
I want you to talk about that because I bet you've got
Mhm.
some really great insights on that. We're like, no, I'm just an empath. That's just what I do. I just take on everybody's emotions. Nope, that's a thief. That's a thief. You are robbing them of their human experience. It's their
Ooh,
experience. Go.
you can't be an empath without discernment. You can never stake claim on being an
Ah,
empath without discernment.
yes.
Because
Talk more about that.
if you consider yourself an empath, okay, an empath truly is an understanding of somebody else's emotions. You cannot be an empath and take on everybody else's stuff. You're not an empath. You're a sponge. You're
Yes.
a vessel that has allowed yourself and you're exposed.
Hmm.
You do not have the discernment to understand the empath. An empath is somebody who I see you in your emotion and I allow you to have your emotion because I see you in it. Does that make sense? I see you in it.
Yes. And I don't need to take it from you to feel better. I can just allow you to have whatever experience you need to have, and I'm here for all of it.
We've excused people pleasing for an empath. We gave it a different name because
Yes,
then
oh my God.
it allowed us to be a people pleaser under the guise of being an empath. Because
Goosebumps.
I know, same, being an empath is acceptable. Being an empath is like, there's something acknowledgeable in that. Oh my gosh, you're an empath? How cool is that? No, without discernment, honey, you're just a freaking people pleaser.
Yes. We've just labeled it differently
Oh,
so that we can have a new badge of honor.
that's exactly what that is. That's exactly
Yeah.
what that is. And you know what happens then when you sit in that position of the people pleaser under the guise of an empath? You never allow yourself the opportunity to sit in your own dang emotions in order to find the discernment.
Yep.
You're going to consistently go out to find the people who want to dump their stuff on you so that it feeds you,
So
right? So
it
it
validates your
validates.
empathicness.
That's exactly what it does. Now, what happens with the people? Because I love all of you who are listening. Please hear me in saying this. Not all of you are going to place yourself in the people pleasing or the empath. There are probably a few of us out there who sit on the other side of I take my emotions and I dump them on other people and expect them to take them up. There
Mhm.
just are. Okay. Can we just be real about it? Let's have both sides of the conversation. What would
Yeah.
you say? What would you say, Leah? Open mic to them. What would you say to those who have not figured out how to navigate their emotions, right? Who control, because it shows up as control, who
Mhm.
try to control outcomes, who try to control timelines, who try to control the people and the experiences that are happening around them,
Mhm.
because it negates their own having to sit in the mess. What would you say to them?
Well, one, I think I think what happens probably more often than not is we play both sides.
Okay, break it
Right?
down.
Right? So as a people pleaser that now we're white labeling now as an empath, okay? We want to absolve everybody's emotions so that we can feel better that everybody else is feeling better. right? Because one, we haven't understood that having a human experience requires the 50-50 of navigating emotions. The hard ones, the easy ones. Let's be up for all of them. Let's go. Let's live
Yes.
the biggest life, right?
Yes.
And let's drop this notion that the goal of life is to be happy all the time.
Ugh.
Can we just please drop the notion that that is the goal, right? And instead of, having massive happiness be the goal, can it just be humanness? One. Then what I would say to those of us, right, which I think some of us, most of us, all of us at some point in time have delegated our emotions onto people. And
Yes.
what it looks like is somebody says something or somebody does something that you make mean something that hurts you, and you give them the credit. Son doesn't do something, so you get mad at him, and you delegate your madness onto him. He can't keep he is not capable. He barely can navigate his own emotions. Humans can barely navigate their own emotions, and when we dump them on them, meaning we don't take responsibility for our own emotions. That's what that looks like. Meaning when somebody does something and somebody says something and you give them the credit for your emotions, you get frustrated that they didn't do what it is that you wanted them to do. You get upset that this was said and it shouldn't have been said. You get annoyed. You get anything. Anytime you're blaming your emotions on something or someone, you are one, giving all your power away. And two, you're giving people a responsibility that was never theirs. That is yours. That is yours. And until you understand that, it's no wonder we play the dance of both sides.
Yes.
Because we haven't understand. If we can give our emotions to people, then what's keeping us from taking it?
So true.
When we don't understand it. So I think we all play in this vacuum where we just keep swapping emotions and no one's actually taking any control of it.
Brilliant. And in the lack of control of the emotions, we try to control everything else. Everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Everything.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously.
Yes. So how do we we got 2 minutes. Producer said 2 minutes, Cari. How do we bring this full circle to our leaders out there that are listening?
Well, here's what I would say. One, let's have an acknowledgement.
Yes.
Let's have an acknowledgement. Let's have an acknowledgement around the emotions, what it is that you're feeling, and what it is that you've been handing over. And let's begin to take back what's ours. Let's take back what's ours. And in that taking back of what's ours, let's give ourselves the permission, the grace to navigate through that, to truly sit in it. Okay. So that would be one of the things that I would say. Second, let's not take on other people's emotions. Let's allow them to sit in it, either by sitting in the sandbox and just allowing them to throw sand and sitting there very peacefully. You know what? Just not in a space to have that conversation right now. Or I'm not in a space to have that conversation, and you get up and you walk away.
Right.
Let them navigate that emotion the way that they need to navigate that emotion, and then come back together, because your silence and your peace is the greatest gift that you will ever give to somebody else. What else would you say, Leah?
It's not, just as a heads up, friends, we have not been taught how to do this.
No.
Been taught the opposite. We've been taught ever since we were little, oh, you can't do that. That would upset him. That would hurt little Johnny's feelings, right? We have been taught that we are responsible for other people's pain.
Yes.
And we're also taught that we're responsible for everybody else's happiness. It's not true. So one, that we have to acknowledge that. That's first and foremost. If you need help with that, Cari and I are here, ready to help you with that. We have to know that as leaders. We have to know that to go to that next level. And I want you to know that it's going to be uncomfortable and it's going to be unfamiliar, because we're not good at it. We're not well versed at it. We're not practiced at it. And the best way to get practice at anything is to practice it.
Right?
So that's what
1000%.
I'm inviting you to do. Practice it. Sit in the discomfort of allowing yourself to feel what you need to feel. Sit in the discomfort and the unfamiliarity of it, allowing other people to sit in theirs.
I love it.
I love it.
Okay. That's the work. That's what we're asking. That's what we're asking. Thank you
I,
so much for allowing us to just riff today to have this conversation. And we promise we'll bring you the hiring. We'll bring you the hiring at some point. In the meantime, if you have specific questions around that, please reach out to either Leah or myself or join our community and membership because we would love to have this conversation there as well. All right, guys, have an amazing week.
bye, everybody.
Bye.
You have been listening to Shift Happens. Discover the leader within with Leah Rolling and Cari Kenzie, where we help you reconnect with your inner leader. Learn to trust your instincts and live with authenticity and confidence.
Tune in every Friday at 11 a.m. Central Time to Shift Happens on Transformation Talk Radio for more insights, inspiration, and actionable strategies to live and lead, not only in purpose, but on purpose. It is time to embrace a life and leadership style that is true to you. For more information, visit shift.life.